At 3:27 a.m., 10 Chinese cruise missiles streaked toward the U.S. Freedom Rig with 40,000 pounds of firepower behind them. Radar went dark as Beijing unleashed 120 gigawatts of jamming power. On paper, this was checkmate, but within minutes, something no one expected changed the outcome. A single U.S. commander shouted two words that turned the tide of the entire battle and left 9 of those missiles falling into the sea. What did he say, and how did it alter the power balance of the South China Sea overnight?
Heads in the West Philippine Sea, the waters off the Philippines that Beijing claims is a part of the South China Sea.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. How can 120 gigawatts of electronic interference and 10 missiles blazing at once still fail to crack a single U.S. platform?
Beijing's silent hunters grow deadlier. American subs pack cutting-edge tech, but Washington struggles to outbuild its surging rival.
That was the question in the dark hours when Beijing's fleet surged into position. At sea, the Chinese Armada had assembled one of the most intimidating strike packages in decades. Their carrier group sailed with destroyers flanking the edges, frigates extending radar coverage, and guided missile ships circling for support. Overhead, bombers armed with precision payloads flew in formation, while electronic warfare aircraft orbited with antennas glowing against the night sky. Billions of dollars in sensors, radars, and weapons converged on the Freedom Rig, a target meant to send a message. For Beijing, the gamble was bold and simple. Break through American defenses in one overwhelming strike, paralyze the power grid that fueled the rig's operations, and show every nation in the region who truly controlled those contested waters. They chose nightfall to mask movements, expecting American vision to collapse under waves of radio pulse and electromagnetic haze. The payoff, if it worked, would mean Beijing could claim the South China Sea not just with words, but with firepower and humiliation of U.S. forces in front of the world. Failure, however, would undermine years of buildup and risk exposing weakness they had tried to hide. The opening salvo looked unstoppable. 10 cruise missiles locked onto coordinates along the Freedom Rig's perimeter, launching in volleys that streaked low and fast across the surface. The bombers, each carrying loadouts that together tipped the scales at more than 40,000 pounds, moved into position to hammer anything left standing.
Inside, you can already see how close you are, then you see the two aircraft drifting even closer together. That's when Indo-Pacific Command says this was an unsafe maneuver.
Now the Pacific is ground zero for a new arms race as the US-China rivalry erupts beneath the waves.
5 specialized aircraft projected interference so dense it swallowed entire radar bands.
Has accused America of practically inventing several legal concepts like international waters, saying it does not exist,
leaving U.S. operators staring at blank screens as if someone had pulled the plug on reality. Within seconds, communications turned into static, navigation degraded, and command posts hovered between disbelief and panic. For the Marines stationed on the rig, the chaos was immediate. One moment they were following normal intercept procedures, the next they were cut off, unable to confirm even basic radar returns.
challenging their legal basis. In a first-of-its-kind report, in fact, Beijing has hit out at the U.S.
Lights flickered as jamming overwhelmed electronics, consoles failed to respond, and radio handsets barked half-words in broken bursts before falling silent. Without sensors, the rig stood blind, listening to a storm of distant engines closing the gap. The silence was its own weapon, grinding at morale and filling every watch officer with the same thought. What good were advanced systems if they could be swatted aside like toys? The imbalance of power looked crushing. China's fleet drilled for nighttime attacks designed to overwhelm any opponent. They expected confusion, hesitation, and the shock of instant technological paralysis. With an aircraft carrier group pressing forward, bombers lining up their runs, and electronics smothering underway, American defenses seemed already finished.
The Pacific is now ground zero for a new arms race as the U.S.-China rivalry erupts beneath the waves.
At this point, the rig's power looked like nothing more than a shadow against waves of steel and jet engines, already outnumbered and at serious disadvantage. It was here that Colonel James Marston, overseeing rig defenses, became the pivot on which everything turned. Facing shattered networks and no reliable instrumentation, he cut through the confusion with one blunt command. That order, switch off failing systems and operate by hand, shifted the entire fight in seconds. Spotters climbed into position with thermal scopes, Marine riflemen logged bearing reports, and teams began calling out trajectories by eye and heat signature alone.
Tensions are rising in one of the most hotly contested regions on the planet, the South China Sea. From militarized artificial islands to fighter jets.
China has demanded that the United States effectively restrain its forces and cease all provocative actions in the South China Sea.
Control returned not through silicon, but through steady human judgment. As missiles raced toward the rig, the new setup tracked them without radar, guiding defensive fire manually with precision nobody expected. 9 of the 10 missiles veered off course, crashing into waves short of the platform. The bombers pressing their assault found themselves suddenly contested by rallying fire, guided only by thermal scopes.
It added that the US is defending its right to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows.
In the next exchange, 7 went down before completing their runs, tumbling into the sea and burning against the swells. The result was a brutal lesson written in real time. Beijing had banked everything on electronic supremacy. What they had not counted on was resilience built into men who refused to accept that darkness meant defeat.
That we have continued access alongside all of our allies and partners to international airspace and international waters.
The Chinese Defense Ministry said the American warship, the USS Higgins, illegally entered China's territorial waters. China claims it allegedly warned and drove away an American destroyer sailing near the disputed Scarborough Shoal.
Human adaptability outweighed the carefully engineered interference, and for that night at least, brute electronic power met its match against eyes, judgment, and grit. When the blackout hit and systems collapsed, the outcome rested not on machines but on people. Observers with scopes, gunners with steady aim, and a commander willing to strip everything down to basics kept the rig alive.
With every launch in commission, the world's 2 superpowers are racing ahead for global naval supremacy.
Amid a widening row between the US and China, Beijing has called out America's freedom of navigation operations.
The lesson was clear. Technology amplifies strength, but it cannot replace human adaptability and grit. So here's the bigger question. Was this the night that ended China's push for dominance in the South China Sea? Or was it just the opening round of something far larger? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because this battle may only mark the beginning.